Hello everyone and welcome to the very first Planet Zoo video here on the YouTube channel. Today we're going over everything that is inside the Planet Zoo beta. So when you load up the game for the very first time, you will see the avatar creator, very similar to Planet Coaster but with some new additions. And then, of course, after you finish making your avatar, you can then place your HQ somewhere on this new globe. And after you got your character placed down, well, you can see all the different game modes. So you have scenario, franchise, and sandbox. But the sandbox is not in the beta. That will have to wait until after the launch of the game. So to start things off, we're taking a look at the scenario mode. Inside the scenario mode, you are tasked with completing various objectives. In the beta, however, you only have access to one scenario. The scenario, however, is only a tutorial. So if you're familiar with Planet Coaster with the controls, the first half of the tutorial may not be all that interesting. The second half of the tutorial is really starting to get to know the new mechanics inside of Planet Zoo. So if you want to learn how to play Planet Zoo before you dive into the franchise mode, take a look at the scenario mode, as the very first objective you will have access to is a tutorial. Anyways, so I am now going to just show you what's different about the scenario mode in this game compared to the career mode in Planet Coaster by showing you this clip here.
Ah, heyo at Hematu. Yeah, sorry about that. I have a habit of slipping back into the Planko language. It's good to finally meet you in person. I'm Bernard, although I insist you call me Bernie. The only person who calls me Bernard is my wife. And even then, only when I've tracked elephant dung into the carpets. As you know, I own several zoos, but I always like to show people the ropes here at my home. This is the first zoo I ever opened, and a source of great pride for me. And prides, thanks to a lion breeding program we ran in the 80s. But we're in the middle of a big renovation, and that's where you come in. Sadly, our old contractor had to retire after developing a fur allergy. Poor devil kept sneezing his dentures into the lion habitat. So, it's up to you to finish everything off. Don't worry, though. I'm not completely throwing you in at the deep end. My head keeper, Nancy Jones, will be lending a helping hand. Oh, she's a hard worker, and she'll expect you to be, too. But I'm sure you'll get along like a house on fire, or even better, one that isn't on fire. Less shouting that way.
Hello there. From that rosy, fresh face of yours, I'm guessing you're Bernie's new hire. Good. Now, I hope you're ready to ditch your diploma because we're about to get really hands-on. But before we begin the real work, how about we familiarise you with the zoo by learning how to fly around it and visiting some of our beautiful animals? We'll start by popping over and having a look-see at the grizzly bears in their habitat. As Bernie would say, those lions are awesome. Which is precisely why I handle the training instead these days. Anyway, how about we get started on those objectives? Come on, let's head over to our warthog habitat and see what needs doing there. Now, our contractor had to leave in a hurry, so this place is in a feral state. Unfinished thingamajigs and whatsits all over the shop. But the first thing we need to finish is the ostrich habitat. It's over near the hippos. Right, let's complete the perimeter barrier so we can adopt us some ostriches. I've marked out an area for you to use, so I'd like you to finish off the perimeter using the brick barrier. Good work! Remember, before you can place animals in any habitat, it has to have a full loop of connected barrier. Now, you've probably noticed that guests can't actually see into this habitat at the moment. At least not without a stepladder. but seeing as they're banned, I'd like you to select a piece of barrier and swap out the brick for a glass barrier so the guests can see in. There we go. Adding in more windows gives guests even more opportunities to see the animals in a habitat. It's always best to make sure the guests can get a good view into a habitat from the path they're walking on, because it makes them happy, and because this would be a pretty terrible zoo if they couldn't. The last thing we need to do is to add a donation box. You see, when guests enjoy the view of an animal, they'll make a donation. Just make sure you put them in easy-to-reach places, like near a viewing point. Donation boxes are one of the main sources of income for the zoo, so make sure you remember them. While we wait for them to be collected by the caretakers and brought to the habitat, you should get it ready for them. Add a suitable feeding station, water station, and an appropriate food enrichment item. It's often best to place things like enrichments and feeding stations near to the habitat perimeter, so guests can get a really good view of the animals.
So yeah, as you can see, the scenario mode is pretty much just a tutorial right now, but I am very excited to see some interesting challenges and objectives when the game finally comes out. Anyways, let's head over to the franchise mode. So inside the franchise mode, you are tasked with creating your very own park chain, which is very interesting compared to the very normal gameplay of challenge mode in Planet Coaster. So, inside franchise mode, when you first load it up, you are creating your franchise. So give it a name, give it an icon, and give it a banner. After you have your franchise created, you can then create either your very first park, or you can adjust some of your franchise settings. So inside the settings, pretty much is just renaming your franchise, giving it a new icon, or giving a new banner. And of course, you can decide whether or not your avatar visits other people's parks, and if they are anonymous or if they are named. Inside of the franchise mode, you will start off with 300 conservation points. To create your very first park, it will cost you 100. To earn more conservation points, you can release animals into the wild, sell animals on the marketplace, sending your avatar to visit other zoos, logging in daily, completing daily, weekly, and monthly challenges, and completing community challenges. Alright, so let's first talk about the animal market inside the franchise mode. When opening up the animal market, you're opening up a marketplace across all players. So, anytime you see a small little white player icon beside the price, that is an animal that is put up for trade by another player. You can purchase this animal from them using your conservation points. Any animals inside the marketplace that you buy using conservation points, you can then put it back up on the market for conservation points, or you can send it to the wild. But any animal that is purchased using cash cannot earn you conservation points. And then, of course, you can filter out the animals that you want specifically inside of this animal marketplace, because it can get pretty annoying at times when you're trying to find that one specific animal you want, but you're just finding a whole list of ostriches, right? So just click that three-dot icon right beside your animals, and you can search by species. And of course, you can do the same thing with your price. You can search by cash, or you can search by conservation, and then order it by descending or ascending in price. Looking over at the exhibit trading, it's very similar in how it works, but it's not online based, or at least it doesn't seem like it. But there's no animals inside the exhibits that uses conservation points. They're all done by cash. So the zoo management tab seems to be a lot better than what the management tab was like back in Planet Coaster. So there's all sorts of tabs ranging from your shops and facilities to your animals, and of course we also have our workers. And the workers tab is so much better than Planet Coaster. I can actually scroll through it, and there's not so many gaps between the workers. The only gaps you see are between the type of worker they are. Building inside a Planet Zoo is exactly like Planet Coaster. As you can see, there are grid-based objects that can be seen with the grid icon in the top left corner of their item icon. And then any of them that does not have that grid icon are all free to place objects. The path system of Planet Zoo is nearly identical to the one of Planet Coaster. I haven't exactly been able to find any real true differences between the two path systems just yet, But the one real difference that definitely does stand out is the control system. The control system I am referring to is, of course, the alternate pathing. So when you hold on Z, you do get an alternate transition between the T-junction and a smooth transition. In Planet Zoo, it's just flipped around. Default one is the smooth transition instead of the T-junction. One cool addition to the paths, however, is the staff path. So this path type will keep guests away from the staff buildings, which will actually cause a decrease in happiness if they are seen in a certain radius. A few other things to mention about the gameplay is that there is a heat map you can toggle on and off to see specific things about your park, such as guest happiness, how the animals are doing, how the temperature is, all that fun stuff. Speaking of the heat map, you can also see your electricity output. Now there are rides inside of Planet Zoo, and right here you can see that I am attempting to build one just to show it to you guys. But I couldn't really get it working because the power inside the game, or the electricity, didn't seem to be working or connecting to it properly. I don't know why I was doing this, but moving on. I now want to take a moment with you guys to have a look over the terrain tool. The terrain tool in this game is amazing. I love it. So, it's very similar to Planet Coaster with how you can race the train and have the train go over itself. So, you know, creating a cave, basically. But there are a few other features with this system. For example, the terrain paints, there's a new paints available, and you know, some of the paints are special. For example, there are now tall grass in the game. And there is snow. The snow, however, will melt in hot temperatures. So make sure you have some cooling vents nearby wherever you're placing down your snow. The water in this game is similar to Planet Coaster in terms of how you place it down, but once it's placed down, it acts differently. So the water will actually change the terrain paint upon placement and the terrain shaping. But if you don't like the way how the water looks, you can't exactly go back and change it using the terrain tool after the water's placed. But the reason why the water is like this is most likely due to the way how animals are interacting with it. But one of the best features about the terrain tool has to be the terrain shape tool. It's amazing. I love it. You can put down this shape, right? You can put down a cube, you can put down a cylinder, a sphere, a pyramid. It will make whatever shape that you decide perfect. Like, it's a very easy tool to use if you're trying to make a specific look in your terrain. And to go with that, you can adjust the height of this shape. You can adjust the width. That's really nice. And it's not just for placement, it's also for removal too. Inside of Planet Zoo, we have weather effects, finally. Oh my god, I've been wanting this in Planet Coaster for such a long time. And seeing it in Planet Zoo, it's so good. So, there's 4 different weather conditions that can happen. You have clear skies, cloudy, and 2 good ones is rain and snow. So we're going to be taking a look at the rain first. The effects just look amazing. It's really well done, and the ground and everything has a bit of shine to it to make it appear wet. And if you look closely to objects, you can see that there's particles of water dripping off of them, making it look like the water is actually landing on these scenery objects and just flowing off. And what's even greater about this is that any scenery object in the game can actually be used as like shelter, basically. Because any item that is exposed to the sky will interact with the weather, but any item or terrain that is not exposed to the sky will actually just, you know, act and appear as normal. And guests will react the same. If they are exposed to the weather effects, they will use their umbrellas. They will react to it, but if they're not, they will, you know, just stay as normal inside a shelter. And the same can be applied to snow, but with snow you can really see this effect very easily, because you can see the white sheet of snow on the entire map, but in places where there's shelter, you can see that the snow is not hitting the ground at all. So these weather effects are really great, and I can't wait to explore them further when I really dive down into this game. Anyways, that is all for today's Planet Zoo video. If you want me to cover anything specific about Planet Zoo, let me know down in the comments below. If you want to see me play this game, be sure to check out my Twitch page, as I'll be playing this throughout the entire beta. Anyways, other than that, I will see you guys later.
Oh,